This week we're reading Parashat Kitavo. This parasha is a long parasha. It's set specifically before the high holidays for Rosh Hashanah. There's a very long rebuke in this parasha where HaKadosh Baruch Hu describes there are two portions in our Torah that are full of rebuke, and this is the longer one. So very harsh verses, harsh psukim. And within this long rebuke, one of the statements, one of the verses states that in the very detailed description of the problems and the curses that will come upon our people, which has already, all of them we've already finished with. But when the Torah is given, then Moshe Rabbeinu, he warns us that this is what will come upon us. And one of the things that he says there is that Kol Madvei Mitzrayim Asher Yagorta Mipnehem. That's the verse. It means that all of the makot, all of the diseases and the problems and the curses that you yourself saw coming on Egypt, referring to the 10 plagues when we were in Egypt, before the Exodus. So the verse states specifically, again, using these plagues as an example for what may come about on the Jewish people if we don't go in the path of Hashem. So the Torah uses these plagues and states specifically that these are plagues that we feared. So the Mea Shilach is the Ishbitzer in this week's portion that we want to contemplate on. So this is the point he focuses on describing or pinpointing why does the Torah make a point to stress that these plagues that we viewed, our sages teach us that the plagues didn't come on the Jewish people. They came only on the Egyptian people, those who were enslaving us. And that was one of the biggest phenomena there that also impacted the Egyptian people to see that this is the hand of God, that this is something that is a calling on them to release these people, to release us, to go worship Hashem, let my people go. One of the most wondrous things was this differentiation, that the Jewish people, the slaves, weren't inflicted by the plagues, while the Egyptians simultaneously were inflicted by these 10 plagues. But the Torah states here in our parasha specifically that when we saw the plagues inflicting our neighboring, our masters, the slaves there, that we were slaves for, the Egyptians, when we saw them being afflicted by these plagues, then we were fearful for ourselves. So we saw this infliction, and it startled us, it scared us. And this is what the Torah states in our parasha: Kol madvei Mitzrayim asher yagorta mipneim. All of the plagues that came upon Egypt, which you feared when you saw them. Now, why does the Torah state that? So the Ishbitzer says a beautiful thing. Now, in order to contemplate on what he says, then we'll very briefly mention a fundamental Torah and Chasidut from the Baal Shem Tov, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and see how the Ishbitzer, again, he says the same idea, but he adds another layer to this fundamental concept that's explained in Chasidut. The very famous word from the Baal Shem Tov that we're referring to is, again, we won't say all the Hebrew, but the way it's linguistically derived is very, very beautiful. But the Baal Shem Tov, he reads into one of the Mishnayot that a person is incapable of seeing his own problems, his own folly, his own issues. This is something very familiar to all of us, that we are al kol pshayim techasei ahava. A person's self-love, self-containment is such that he compromises and self-justifies all of his issues, all of his flaws, all of his blemishes, and he doesn't notice them. So he doesn't know if he's cruel or cheap or unkind, or all of our own issues. We don't notice them. We're oblivious to our own issues, again, unless they're very drastic. But generally speaking, we're much less sensitive to our own issues. We're not bothered by them as much as we're bothered when we see them on someone else. And the Baal Shem Tov points out that for this reason, when you see someone else walking down the street and he's doing something wrong, or you see a blemish on him, something that's not good point in his personality or in his behavior, so you should know that this is a reflection of yourself. A very famous Torah from the Baal Shem Tov, that your fellow person is like a mirror, mirroring your own blemishes. So every blemish you see in reality, you should immediately relate to yourself. Now, this is something that in Chasidut, other than an interesting statement, or maybe even a special statement, that we can see how even the most superficial acceptance of such a statement is something that can, okay, so it can stand me in my place. I need to be much more self-critical, much more self-scrutinizing, if that's the case. But in Chasidut, so there's a lot of elaboration. Why is that? Why is that so? If I see a person walking down the street, I know somebody's chas v'shalom, he's eating unkosher, he's not keeping Shabbos. That means that I'm eating kosher. I'm not keeping Shabbos. I do keep Shabbos. Why should I feel that whatever blemish I see outside is actually a reflection of myself? Why is that the case? So, cutting a long story short, the contemplation that derives from this is what the Baal Shem Tov is implying is not the superficial, informative, technical issue that you see, but the way you see a blemish. The second you see a blemish, you see something wrong, and you feel it, you experience it as a blemish. If you want to contemplate on this concept, we can take two examples. For instance, if you see something not good on your friend, let's say a person is doing something wrong. So there are two ways to experience it. For instance, if I see a person, like we said before, I see a person eating something not kosher. Okay, so other than my understanding, my conception of reality is that this is something not good, and maybe I even care about this person. You shouldn't be doing that. But other than that, there's usually a simultaneous experience of anger, of feeling that it's anger or a derogatory feeling, where I feel, again, not good. It bothers me. It's a kvetch. It gives me a sense of uncomfortable about what he's doing. So now sometimes that's not the case. I could see someone doing something wrong. For instance, an example we've used before is maybe you see somebody, again, also something bad. You see somebody harming himself. See someone's eating glass. He's not eating something not kosher. He's eating glass or eating sand. Okay, so that's not good. If you see someone eating a piece of glass, then that's obviously something harmful. And you also feel, again, in your conception of reality, he shouldn't be doing that. Maybe you care for him, but you don't have that accompanied sensation of like derogatory sensation, that feeling of uncomfortability. You care for him, but it remains completely clean. There's no anger. There's no no feeling of like in the back of your neck of him annoying you. It doesn't annoy you. It just informatively bothers you. And also, obviously, you should approach that person, tell him, don't do that. Maybe he needs help. Maybe he needs mental help. But the way you experience seeing someone eating glass and the way you experience seeing someone eating not kosher is very, very different. Even though cognitively you understand them both as being something bad, but this bad bothers you. It feels bad. Now, this is what the Baal Shem Tov was implying, that if you see a blemish, if you see something of a certain behavior, a certain attribute in your friend, and it feels like a blemish, so you experience the bad in it. Again, it irritates you. It gives you nerves in the back of your neck. You get angry. So if you feel bad about it, you feel the bad of it, then that's coming from within yourself. What's the difference between someone eating kosher, not kosher, and someone eating glass? Very simple. That you have no desire to eat glass. You have no connection to that. It doesn't belong to you. It doesn't reflect anything within you. It's very, very distant. So you really feel it clean. Now, it doesn't mean that you're appreciative of someone eating glass. No, you know it's bad, and you should definitely approach that person and rebuke him and tell him, don't do that, and help him in life. But it lacks that irritated sensation. The irritation you feel when you see someone doing something wrong is because you identify with them. And if you don't identify, then you don't see the irritation, even though technically your eyes will see the fact. That the Baal Shem Tov is not implying that you won't see the occurrence. You'll see the occurrence, but you won't experience it as a blemish. You won't experience it as something irritating. So the accompanied irritation is a reflection of what's going on within yourself. And therefore, when you see someone doing something bad, i.e. that you see someone, the facts, and other than the facts, it's accompanied by a bad irritation. That is a reflection of what's within yourself. This is, again, a very fundamental concept in Chasidut that should be obviously implied in our lives. So when you see someone and he's doing something, if it irritates you, get angry, that's because you're very much identified with this. You should find that blemish within yourself. And definitely before you approach this person, that's also something that we can very easily understand, that as long as you feel and experience the blemish in this irritated manner, then you're probably not capable of helping this person either. And if you see a person eating glass, then your honest empathy and sympathy for him will also enable you to, Bezrat Hashem, help him out of this situation. But if you see someone eating something not kosher, chas v'shalom, but it irritates you and you get angry and you try to rebuke him from that place, and it's not going to be useful either. It's going to harm. So you have to first rebuke yourself. Kshot atzmecha. before you can rebuke him. And the measurement of how do I know when have I really negotiated this issue within myself is when I lose that sensation. I stop feeling it. Doesn't irritate me anymore. It doesn't irritate me only if I stop relating to it as something that's reflecting myself. So the irritation, feeling, the sensing the bad sensation, that's what the Baal Shem Tov is talking about when he says that when you see something on someone else, you should know it's a reflection of yourself. Now, this is again a fundamental Torah and Chasidut. Now, what does the Ishbitzer add here on this verse about Egypt? So as we said, the Torah states here that when the Jewish people saw the 10 plagues coming on the Egyptian people, so they were startled by it. They were taken aback. And Ishbitzer says, again, this is like another layer on what the Baal Shem Tov says. Not only when I see a problem with someone else, a blemish, and maybe we'll say one more word about that fundamental Torah and Chasidut, which anyone can, again, I'm sure you all worked it out on your own already, that I see issues on someone else, it also enables me to see the issues, because as long as I experience them within myself, I don't realize how irritating they are. So that HaKadosh Baruch Hu summons someone to reflect the issues I identify with, it also obviously enables me to surface and realize my own blemishes and also tend to them. But here he's saying something more than that. It's not just a matter of realizing and noticing my blemishes, but if I react correctly to the other person's blemish, the other person's bad, which is only a reflection of mine, that's the correct reaction, realizing. And when I feel that sensation, and that sensation is coming from my identification, that I relate to this, because it exists, it coexists within me as well. And if I react to it correctly, that I get shocked, or it moves me as if I'm seeing myself in a mirror. So I do tshuva for it. I don't just informatively understand what we just explained, that psychologically, if you're irritated by something, then that's a reflection of what's going on within yourself. But not only that, but when I realize that, when I experience that, it should move me enough to be startled by that realization. And that startling, that movement, is in itself a notion of tshuva. And that's what the Torah is saying in our parasha, that because you were so startled, why were the Jewish people so startled? Because they realized this. They saw that the blemishes that the Egyptian people entertain and reflect, and they're being punished for, we're all the same. We have the same blemishes within ourselves. And that's why they were also, again, irritated by them, but also startled by the rebuke they received from Hashem. Because we also deserve that. We also have that same blemish. Now that reaction, that realization that what I'm seeing is a reflection of myself, is not only an informative realization, it's only surfacing my problems, it's also inherently rectifying the problem itself. Because if you react correctly, then just the realization of who you are and what blemishes you yourself entertain is in itself a notion of tshuva. Because now that you're shocked and startled that this is who I am, then you yourself, like let's say you see a person who's again, not being kind, not being nice, and you're very irritated by that. Again, it doesn't have to be a distant person, your son, your spouse, your family. Somebody does something that again, sometimes some of your kids, all people have issues. But sometimes one of your children or your spouse or your friends or your neighbors, sometimes it's this person who you just can't stand. Everybody has issues, but his issues get on your nerves. So that's a clear reflection of relation between you two. And if you realize that, and you see how irritating he is, and you realize that this is a reflection of who you are, then that should drive you to, first of all, to be startled about yourself, and to contemplate and scrutinize yourself and rectify that which needs rectifying. And by doing so, then just the experience, the exposure of who you are is enough to rectify you, to rebuke you, and then you spare the need to go through the actual plague. That's what he implies here. That if I react correctly to what I see reflected to me from external reality, then I don't need the plague, because I experience it as a ricochet from the reality that I'm seeing. So that's how he explains this contemplation. What the Torah is saying is that the Jewish people, they took the rebuke they saw happening to the Egyptian people, they took it to heart so much that it rectified their own blemishes. But in order for that to happen, for that to work for us in life, we need to be willing to identify that when I'm so irritated about you, what I'm really irritated about myself. And those people around me, my friends, my children, whoever it is, that their issues don't irritate me, it's because they're really something else. They have their own issues. But when there's that one person or that one issue that hits my nerve, that's because it's mutual. I have it as well. And if I react correctly, then the exposure also rectifies and ignites a process of tshuva within myself. And then I don't have to go through the actual objective plague, Bezrat Hashem. So we'll bless ourselves, all of us now in Elul, before Rosh Hashanah, that we all, any rebuke we need or any rectification we need will always be b'chesed v'rachamim, in a compassionate manner, that we can just contemplate and catch and realize all the issues that need rectifying. We want to be rectified. We want to fix what needs fixing, but we want to do it in a compassionate manner. And in order to do that, we need to realize it in its thinnest, most deepest root before it erupts into reality. And there we can fix it and rectify it in again in a negotiable, calm, peaceful manner. Bezrat Hashem. So everybody, we wish everyone a Shana Tova, Tukah Ktiva v'Chatima Tova.